if we can calculate the average value of a random variable, we can also calculate the standard deviation. And the standard deviation measures how spread out the values are. And we're going to calculate it using this formula here, which is a little more complicated, but read through order of operations here. The giant sigma means add up all of the, what are you going to add up? Well, you're going to add up the x minus mu, the average, squared, times the probability. So you're going to do this calculation for every x value, then you'll add them all up, then you'll do the square root of that. And that is the most work we have to do for any calculation in this class. There's really no way to shortcut this. Before, we were finding standard deviation using this nice Excel command, but that worked when we had data. We don't have data in this case. We have a probability model. So unfortunately, we cannot use this in this case. But let's go through an example of how this works, because you should do it a few times. It's not super complicated. So here I have my probability model for a D6. I have my role and my probabilities. So I'm just going to do this all here. I'm going to add a new column, x minus mu squared times p of x. And so to do this, I already need to have my average, my expected value calculated. You can see I did that with the sum product formula using the roles and the probabilities already. But I know that's 3.5 from a previous video anyway. So put this in here, do equals, and then do your x value minus mu, which in this case is 3.5, in parentheses, square that, then multiply it by your probability, which formula is getting in the way, but it's this one over here in C14. So you do that, you get this number. Again, this number doesn't really mean anything, but you can copy and paste that formula down to see how it works. And since it measures how spread out they are, the numbers are bigger when they're further from the mean, and these numbers are smaller when they're closer to the mean. So now to do that, now you add all these up. That's the sigma part of this formula, is add all these up. And when you add them all up, that will give you the variance. And there are a couple web work questions that ask you for the variance. So it's just whatever you get using this formula before you do the standard deviation. So let's do 4 decimal points. Then the standard deviation is the square root of the variance. In Excel, equals SQRT is the square root. So do that, you get this number, 1.707. So a lot of math problems you're going to do, calculating the standard deviation of this doesn't really make any sense. Or like, it's not wrong. It's just like, how does 1.71 essentially relate to the roll on a die? And in this case, like, the outcomes are all simple. It's uniform distribution, so you can calculate this, but I'm not sure it means a whole lot or tells you anything interesting. We'll do a couple other examples where we can actually use the standard deviation to actually make some conclusions and compare some things.